Chipotle has been through it all. Once owned by McDonald's, nearly wiped out by food safety issues, and then, against all odds, making one of the biggest comebacks in restaurant history. Under new leadership, in just 6 years, its stock skyrocketed over 900%, turning it into a favorite on Wall Street. But now, a misstep may be costing them.
Chipotle shareholders are now suing the company over portion sizes.
An extra spoon of this or an extra scoop of that can mean the difference between profitability and a loss.
You've not shrunk the portions.
No, we never have. Like, from the beginning of time with Chipotle, I think there were billboards that said burritos as big as your head. Like, that's never changed.
Customers are calling them out. Social media is filled with complaints about portion sizes and price increases.
That's a full scoop nowadays? Yeah. That's how they're doing it?
And for the first time in years, Chipotle's dominance might actually be at risk. This is the story of how Chipotle built a fast casual empire, lost its way, and fought to take it all back. Founder and former CEO Steve Ells never meant for Chipotle to be this successful. In fact, at first, his goal wasn't even to have more than one store. Chipotle first started in 1993 in Denver, Colorado, where Ells first started serving burritos after graduating from the Culinary Institute of America in New York. Ells admits that he had never even taken a business course before looking to finance this new venture. At 28, he asked his father for a loan of more than $80,000. Ells said, "I opened that restaurant with a novel idea to show that food that was served fast didn't have to be a typical fast food experience, and with the hopes of financing a real restaurant." See, Ells wanted to open a full-service fine dining restaurant, but knew that they were difficult to operate successfully. Chipotle's original concept was modeled after burrito and taco shops that Ells ate at while working at fine dining restaurant Stars in San Francisco. He said, "There was no business plan. I was just making this up as I went along." The restaurant became a success very quickly. In fact, within the first few months, Chipotle was already profitable, and Ells was able to pay back his father's loan. Ells thought, okay, I'll open one more location, still with the hopes of using the profits to open a fine dining restaurant. But as things kept going well, Ells kept expanding. One turned into two turned into three, and before you know it, 5 years later, in 1998, McDonald's became intrigued, and they would become the largest investor in Chipotle. Now, this was during a time where McDonald's was much more interested in acquiring other restaurants to diversify their portfolio, something they don't really do today. But by now, Ells had dropped the hopes of opening a fine dining restaurant because Chipotle was becoming so successful. And for Ells, the McDonald's investment was huge, not only because it allowed for him to expand at a much faster rate, but also they offered expertise with running multiple restaurants. And over the next 7 years, McDonald's had invested over $360 million into Chipotle, at one point owning around 90% of the company. Now, most people don't know this, but McDonald's wanted Chipotle to make a lot of changes to their business. Things like adding drive-thrus, serving breakfast, and even changing their name. But Ells was not very interested in any of this. So in 2006, when Chipotle went public on the New York Stock Exchange, and its share price doubled from $22 a share to $44 within the first day, McDonald's didn't want to be involved anymore, and their investment had grown to over $1.8 billion, so they sold all of their interest in the company when Chipotle went public. Now, some people still mistakenly think McDonald's owns a portion of the company today, but they do not. However, if McDonald's never divested from Chipotle, their investment would be worth over $70 billion today. With minimal problems over the next decade, Chipotle was continuing to grow and becoming more and more popular, not just with customers, but also with investors. Its share price had reached over $750 by August of 2015, but it would be crushed in the years that followed. In 2015, Chipotle went through some major problems that were so significant that it made many wonder if they would ever be able to recover from all of it. That October, officials linked Chipotle to an E. coli outbreak that sickened more than 52 people in multiple states. Then in December, the Boston Public Health Commission determined that at least 65 people, including Boston College students and basketball players, had symptoms consistent with norovirus, which they linked to a Boston area Chipotle. The fallout hammered Chipotle's comparable restaurant sales and share price, but it also damaged its reputation. Investors and critics claimed they weren't doing a good enough job to correct these mistakes. And despite efforts by Chipotle and the CDC, it is unknown exactly what caused the E. coli outbreak, although some suspected it was either tainted beef or improperly handled vegetables. And as for the norovirus outbreak, it was speculated that either an employee at Chipotle or a patron spread the sickness. By 2017, Chipotle was in crisis mode. Sales had collapsed after both of these food safety scandals, and its once loyal customer base was eroding. Investors were losing confidence, and Wall Street was looking for someone to blame. That's when activist investors stepped in. Hedge fund Perishing Square, led by Bill Ackman, built up a nearly 10% stake in Chipotle, and they started pressuring the company for major changes. They weren't just pushing for a turnaround, they wanted a complete overhaul of leadership. After months of boardroom battles, the pressure became too much, and Els, the founder and longtime CEO, was forced out, marking the end of an era. But if Els represented Chipotle's past, Brian Niccol was brought in to secure its future. Niccol was fresh off his success at Taco Bell. He was an outsider, but someone with a track record of transforming brands. And from the moment he took over in early 2018, he made it clear that Chipotle wasn't just going to recover, it was going to try to evolve. And even though Els was forced out as CEO, he still remained chairman of the board, and he helped mentor Niccol up until 2020, when Els finally stepped aside from the company entirely. Now, Niccol's strategy was aggressive. He wanted to focus on rebuilding trust. He relocated Chipotle's headquarters from Denver to California, trying to signal a fresh start. He overhauled food safety protocols and launched marketing campaigns in an attempt to win back skeptical customers. One of his biggest bets, though, was online ordering. He expanded Chipotle's app, pushed delivery, and introduced Chipotle Lanes, which was a digital order drive-thru that made pickup faster and more efficient. And unlike Els, who was hesitant to tweak the menu, Niccol embraced new offerings. He launched new items like queso, lifestyle bowls, and the quesadilla, catering to changing consumer trends. By 2019, the strategy was really paying off. Sales were starting to surge, and the stock price was climbing again. But then the pandemic hit. And when COVID was a death blow for many restaurants, Chipotle was actually built for this. Its digital transformation was already well underway, and with in-store dining shut down, mobile orders and delivery ended up exploding. So Chipotle leaned into this shift, increasing prices without scaring away customers, and its brand came out stronger than ever. Chipotle's model thrives for so many reasons, but one understated element is how quickly consumers can get their food, along with the quality of the food for the price. Now, when you compare this to more traditional fast food restaurants, Chipotle's value proposition has uniquely anchored them and has kind of put them in a league of their own. And while I'm by no means a huge fan of all of these price hikes that they've done over the last few years, it's clear looking at their financials that they have weathered this so much better than other fast food chains. By 2023, Chipotle had fully cemented itself as the dominant fast casual chain, but not all of its changes were embraced. A new issue began to emerge: portion sizes. Social media exploded with complaints that Chipotle's burritos and their bowls were getting smaller. Videos of workers skimping on ingredients went viral, and suddenly, shrinkflation became Chipotle's latest PR problem. Now, this problem wasn't new per se. I know for myself, I was seeing these complaints for at least 2 years before this was later exacerbated by a TikTok trend that encouraged customers to film their meals being made in an attempt to showcase how small the portions had become. This resulted in some customers just walking out if their bowls looked too small, all while filming this. But it also made some customers believe that if they began filming the process, perhaps the workers would give them more food. It wasn't just social media though. A Wells Fargo analyst released a detailed report about portion sizes over time and in different New York City locations. And the results showed what many have been complaining about to be true, that portions had been consistently inconsistent. Now, it's one thing to have anecdotes on social media pointing to shrinking portion sizes, but it's another thing when an analyst from one of the largest banks starts tracking the weight of a burrito bowl over the course of 75 days at 2 different locations and is comparing the difference between mobile ordering and in-person ordering. I would have to imagine this was probably the catalyst for Chipotle acknowledging their shortcomings. And as a result, their CEO said this during a bizarre interview with Fortune.
The portions have not gotten smaller. One of the things I think it's great about Chipotle is if you come into the restaurant and you want a little more rice or you want a little more pico, all you got to do is kind of like, and usually our guys and women, give them a little more scoop.
Yet despite all of this outrage, Chipotle stock kept climbing, reaching an all-time high in June of 2024. The controversy didn't seem to matter until Chipotle decided to respond. Over the last few quarters, they've quietly started to increase portion sizes again. But this time, it may have backfired, at least for investors, not so much for customers. In the third quarter of 2024, Chipotle cited rising costs, which they attributed to generous portion sizes, and as a result, their profit margins declined by about 1%. Now, this hasn't helped their stock price and has had some investors concerned about this issue going forward. In August, Brian Niccol announced he was leaving Chipotle to become the CEO of Starbucks, and this resulted in Chipotle's stock price declining from its near all-time highs. Chipotle appointed Scott Boatwright as interim CEO, and in their most recent earnings call, they mentioned once again the generous portion sizes have affected their profitability. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this is not a huge deal for them, but stock prices live in the margins, so it is an interesting dilemma that they have to face, even though they have acknowledged the importance of maintaining portion consistency to uphold customer satisfaction. The irony here is that the customer backlash never actually hurt Chipotle's bottom line, but their attempt to fix it did. Now, Chipotle has proven over the years they know how to rise even after they fall, but the game is changing.
Game done changed. Game the same, just got more feds.
Costs are rising, customers are paying closer attention, and even the best strategies have limits. With a new CEO and competitors like Cava and Sweetgreen trying to replicate Chipotle's success, the real question isn't how they will keep growing, but if their formula still works in a world where everything costs more and people are paying closer attention. Because if it doesn't, well, we've seen how quickly things can go south. Now, speaking of prices going up while portion sizes are going down, Chipotle isn't the only company who's engaged in this kind of practice. I did a deeper dive into shrinkflation and looked at the sneaky tactics companies are using more of lately. You can check it out in this video here. Thanks for watching.